So the relationship between black people and our public figures. First of all, the black community definitely identifies with public figures in a different way, I think, than other groups.
Yeah.
And I think it starts with, from very early on, I think we're used to having public figures who speak for us, who take on black causes, who say the things that need to be said. Whether you talk about the Harry Belafontes of the world, the Bill Russells of the world, Reverend Jesse Jackson, others. For a long time, they were the mouthpiece for social issues. So the first time a lot of white people or white audiences got to hear these issues firsthand was from these public figures that had a platform. So I think it starts there, is that is kind of the precedent that was set for our public figures.
And as you say that, I wrestle with whether we set that for ourselves or whether whiteness set it for us. And I say this gently, but I think whiteness requires of the other, so any other, black people, people of color, requires excellence out of us. Before we're given any value or dignity.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the pressure that our public figures have felt in America, like throughout the whole history of America, is rooted in that, is rooted in this pressure to be excellent in order to kind of win some value and some dignity from the social construct of whiteness.
Yeah.
And so for me, I try to hold that in tension with whatever disappointment I feel, right? When I see a public figure that has some kind of lapse in character, right? I'm trying to hold the history in tension with that. Like, I know that for you, public figure, to have gotten to where you are carrying with you that pressure that black public figures have had to bear all the way through.
Yeah, I think that's another layer to this as well, is that as black people in America, we understand how hard it is to be just a regular black person. But then for you to get to the top of your field at something, we hold those people in especially high esteem, because who knows the horrors that you have seen
right,
trying to ascend and, presumably pass over white people on the way up. What doors did you have to kick down to get to that place?
Yeah, we know it cost a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. We recently we started and have not finished. It's going to be a slow burn. Yeah, we need to talk about Bill Cosby documentary.
Bruh.
And even though I felt like I knew a lot about him and his story, there was just a lot of stuff that I didn't know. Barriers that he had broken, doors that he has opened, which made his fall so much harder for us to deal with.
That part, yeah. And I think trying to hold that complexity is hard, right? Because when you find out that, and I'm going to pause here, if you're listening to this and you have a sexual abuse history, I want to invite you to ground yourself, use your coping skills right now, or if you have to fast forward and come back to this, that's perfectly fine. But we're going to be talking about some things that can be associated with and bring up some triggers of sexual abuse. But as I think about Bill Cosby in particular and try to hold in tension the barriers that he broke down and, the ways that he trailblazed, it's like, bruh, but the violence that he inflicted on women, is just so hard to reconcile. And that's why I think that, docuseries is so important, because, we had a bunch of other documentaries about what he did and the outcomes of that, but to wrestle with the actual question of like, what do we do with this? What do we do with both sides of Bill Cosby? It's a hard question to answer.
Yeah. I think another layer to this is the fact that black public figures and celebrities have the responsibility of kind of representing us all. They're asked to speak on every black issue, speak for every black person, every community.
Yeah.
And And I think we have internalized that as a community as well, is that we expect you to speak from our perspective, and with our best interest at heart.
Oof. I remember learning a little bit about Michael Jordan and you know his what I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, is an intentional absence from kind of that public speaking part of the job, right? And I remember when I first heard it, I felt a little betrayed. I was like, huh, you know, you've got all this power, you've got all this influence, and it's not just that like maybe you're too busy and you just don't have time to speak on these issues, but I'm hearing that you're actively choosing not to, question mark. So I remember that hitting me kind of hard, and it's because of what you just said, right? That I think I've internalized this expectation that when our people do get a lot of power and influence, that it's just a given, right? That they're going to speak on behalf of our people's interests. Yeah. But then I also was kind of thinking like, okay, you know, he is his own person, right? And I know there's a subset of commentary about racial injustice in America where we are wrestling with the injustice of us having to bear the weight of our whole people rather than just being an individual. And so then when I think about that, I'm like, all right, well, maybe we should give him, you know, room to be his own person and to tap out of that. But I think we can also feel the betrayal at the same time, but also accept that he does get to make that choice.